presidential debates.
No new fracking. And by the way, on the Recovery Act, I was able to make sure we invested $90 billion in making sure we brought down the price of solar and wind that is lower than the price of coal. That's why not another new coal plant will be built.
Biden's campaign releasing a statement saying he meant to say he would not allow new federal land drilling leases. After hearing both clips from the Democratic presidential candidate, it's up for you to decide. For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Rosenthal with you on this Tuesday afternoon. Here's my forecast for southern New Hampshire. Lots of sun, some patchy clouds. It's nice. Temps mostly in the 70s, dry air, light winds. Clouding up overnight, lows about 60. A warm front's moving north tomorrow with a lot of clouds, maybe a scattered shower or storm. It'll be in the mid-70s, becoming muggy by day's end. Thursday, we're in the muggy air with sun clouds. It'll be hot, humid. Temps about 85. Could be a late thunderstorm, but the weekend looks great. For WSMN 1590 and WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua, I'm Mark Rosenthal.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and or associates.
One woman, one mission. Shining light on corruption. This is UncoverDC with your host, investigative reporter Tracy Beanz.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. Thanks, guys, for joining me today. It's good to have you here. Happy to see you, everybody. You're on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM. Welcome to the show, Radioland. Also streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, CloudHub, RightAmericaMedia.com, Facebook, DTube or DLive. We're all over the place today. Glad to be with you. Tons of stuff to talk about today, as is the case, it seems, every time we get together on these streams. But I wanted to start off the show today talking to you guys about General Flynn. And you know, if you've followed along listening to me for any length of time, that this has been a case that I have followed religiously. And it's disheartening and it's upsetting and it's sad. And that's just, it's really sad that this is where the justice system is today in our country. I'm going to do a quick recap on what's gone on so far and what happened yesterday and what happened today, because as we were just coming live today, we got an update in the case. So General Flynn was accused of lying about sanctions on a call with Ambassador Kislyak of Russia. It turned out later on that he did not even discuss sanctions with Ambassador Kislyak of Russia. He talked about expulsions of diplomats. He was never asked about that by the FBI when they ambushed him at the White House under false pretenses without giving him the luxury of an attorney. Then they had cleared him previously, said there was no derogatory information on him whatsoever. Went to close the investigation. Peter Strzok said, wait a second, seventh floor is asking us to keep this open. They said, oh, thank goodness, we're so stupid, we didn't close it correctly. And they left the investigation under Crossfire Hurricane open, at which time they started talking about using the Logan Act to prosecute General Flynn, because they literally had nothing else. It's a lot more in depth than this, but this is the 40,000 foot view. So the special counsel takes over. They decide that that's going to be one of their first their first scalps, so to speak, in the special counsel investigation. General Flynn has counsel that is inept, as we've learned, and I will add that I think, in my opinion, corrupt as well. They advise him to plead guilty because if he doesn't, they will go after his son, who was a partner with him in the Flynn Intel Group. Just last week, or I think it was the week before, actually, now on the show, we had the gentleman who brought the Turkey deal that is in question in this case to General Flynn, Akeem Alptekin, who is also facing charges himself and is in Turkey. He told you his side of the story, that the Turkish government did not fund any of this engagement, which is what Brendan Van Graken, the special counsel, accused General Flynn of, that he was working on behalf of the government of Turkey in taking the deal with Farah. Well, they went to the first judge. General Flynn said he was going to be pleading guilty. Then they went to that judge, who was also a FISA judge, got, kicked off the case or recused himself, I should say. They got appointed Judge Emmett Sullivan, which everybody thought was a great thing because Sidney Powell had written a book about what Judge Emmett Sullivan had done in terms of exculpatory evidence and Brady material in another case. They did their whole guilty plea thing again. The judge called him a traitor in open court, then walked back his statements, asked him if he wanted some more time because he was still cooperating, in quotes, with the government against his former business partner. Government tried to force him to lie about what he did on the Farah forms. General Flynn, under the counsel of Sidney Powell, obviously refused to lie about what he did on the Farah forms. The government wanted him to lie about lying on the forms, if that makes any sense. And he refused to do it. They lost, their case fell apart completely because General Flynn refused to lie. The jury, the biased jury in D.C., convicted Bijan Kian on his charges, but the judge said that the case was so horribly weak that he overturned the conviction himself. Then, it's just I'm just disgusted even talking about this. Then more exculpatory evidence started coming to light as William Barr appointed Jensen, a special U.S. attorney, to take a look at the Flynn case. Sidney Powell had filed a bunch of motions looking for more exculpatory evidence that she knew existed. As more evidence was declassified by DNI Richard Grinnell and was found by U.S. Attorney Jensen in the case, it became very clear that this was a completely corrupt prosecution against an innocent man, and the DOJ stepped forward to withdraw the charges against General Flynn and drop the case in its entirety. The problem with that is that the judge refused to drop the case, which is absolutely unheard of in our justice system. The executive branch has the sole power to bring charges against a defendant. The defendant and the executive were in agreement at this point that the case should not move forward in the interest of justice. The judge in the case decided he was going to become the executioner as well and not accept the motion from the government to dismiss the case. He appointed a friend of the court to take a look at the case and see what was going on with it. Why, if there was corruption involved at the highest levels of the government and in the Justice Department. The day before, Judge Sullivan appointed this amicus curiae, friend of the court. He had written, Judge Gleason was the name of the guy, he had written a ridiculously biased opinion editorial that appeared in the Washington Post, talking about how General Flynn was guilty of what they accused him of, that he should be held to account, and that letting him, walk away, you talk about biased. It's just an absolutely abhorrent and disgusting display that's going on right now. So, Judge Gleason wrote that. There was some back and forth and motions on the docket, and General Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, filed an appeal with the District Appeals Court in D.C., the Ninth Circuit. It was heard for a writ of mandamus, which means an order that would force the judge to accept the motion to dismiss. That went and was heard by a panel of 3 judges, as is the process. Interestingly enough, the court asked for Judge Sullivan to respond to this writ and also asked the DOJ to chime in on the writ as well, which both of them did. But Judge Sullivan hired an attorney to represent him in the action, which then, by all intents and purposes, makes him a party. You can't be a party to a case you're supposed to be an impartial juror over. The judges in that case, 2 to 1 in the 3, granted the writ of mandamus, ordering Judge Sullivan to accept the motion to dismiss in the case. But Judge Sullivan wasn't finished yet. He decided he wasn't happy with that and that he was going to appeal that decision to the full circuit, or an on-bank hearing, which means that all of the judges on the panel will hear arguments on why they should issue the writ of mandamus. That happened a few weeks ago. We heard the arguments, and yesterday we learned that that court, 7-2, had decided that they were going to overturn the decision of the 3-judge appellate court and send the case back to Judge Sullivan, where he could have his kangaroo court and do whatever it is that he was going to do. And in the opinions that were written, there's some really interesting stuff. Their argument, these 7 judges, the argument is that General Flynn didn't have grounds to petition for mandamus because Judge Sullivan hadn't done anything yet, i.e., he hadn't decided not to accept the motion, and that the separations of powers abuses and grave arguments that the government had brought up, the DOJ had brought up, were null and void until after he'd done something. So there were still other means of relief for General Flynn and the government outside of the mandamus being issued. It is ridiculous. They ruled against Judge Sullivan being dismissed from the case and at least a new judge coming in to hear it, saying that he was impartial, that he didn't show any bias, which is absolutely ridiculous. At this point, he has shown more bias than you can't even imagine. I mean, it's horrible. When the judges in this case that wrote this decision put the decision down, when the opinion was written, at the last part, they basically warned Judge Sullivan to do the right thing in due course. And as often happens on live radio, hold on one second. I had to clear my throat and I didn't want to subject you guys to that. So now, yesterday that was the decision. The 2 judges, Henderson and Rao, that made the original decision wrote in opposition to the opinion with very strong arguments, completely disgusted with their fellow judges, saying that the judge is clearly biased. The attorney for the judge is clearly, not even caring about General Flynn's liberty at this point. And it was a very strongly worded opinion by them. And as we speak right now, it appears as though there's updates in the docket. So as right before we came online today, so I could talk to you guys, we had a minute order entered by Judge Sullivan in this case that says, in light of the opinion and order issued by the Court of Appeals on August 31st in Circuit Rule 41A3, which states that an order denying mandamus relief will become effective automatically 21 days after issuance in the absence of an order or other special direction, the parties are directed to file a joint status report with a recommendation for further proceedings no later than September 21st, 2020, 3 weeks from now. The parties' joint status report shall propose a briefing schedule regarding the deadlines for the government and Mr. Flynn to file any reply briefs, and the government, Mr. Flynn, and the court-appointed amicus curiae to file a consolidated response to any amicus briefs of non-court appointed amicus curiae, i.e., Judge Sullivan has opened this up to the entire world to file brief in the case. It is disgusting, unheard of, and a miscarriage of justice, the likes of which I don't think we have seen in decades. What is happening in this court right now should make every American chill to the bone. This judge is rogue and out of control, and the appeals court, the higher court, failed to rein him in and gave him carte blanche to do what he wanted to do. He says it's further ordered that the parties shall propose 3 dates and times to hold oral argument. If the parties are unable to agree on a joint recommendation, the joint status report shall include each party's individual recommendations. There's really no words. There's really no words. Because This is, it's gross. I mean, there's really nothing else I can say. I can't even believe what's happening here. So, Technofog, great follow on Twitter if you haven't followed him by now, says, effectively what it appears is that Judge Sullivan is trying to push this out past the election. So let's go over what potential solutions are to this. For everybody screaming about a pardon, I'm going to disagree. I don't think that there should be any pardon issued at all. General Flynn is an innocent man and should have all avenues in front of him to go ahead and prove that prove that innocence and get his clearance in the court of public opinion and elsewhere. This judge has no standing whatsoever to be doing this right now. The judge is also suggesting more charges for him, which he doesn't have any power to do either. He's saying, we should also see if we can charge him with perjury for lying in his plea. Are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding me, right? So we're waiting, right? I don't think that we should do that right now. So the people will argue, well, if Donald Trump doesn't win, then the DOJ can just attack him again. And I say this, if God forbid Donald Trump does not win the election, he can pardon him up until the day that he hands over the reins of power. And I would recommend that he go ahead and do that at that point if he loses. Not prematurely. There's also no gag order in this case. General Flynn is not gagged. He has chosen to be careful about what he says out of respect, I guess, and deference to the court and what's going on. But there's no gag order. And there's other action that can be taken that I'm working on right now. As far as appealing to the Supreme Court, they'd likely hold up what the district court said because Judge Sullivan hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't ruled against the motion. At the end of the day, he's going to rule for the motion. He's going to accept it. He can't not. It is just not the way it works. It's just not. So what I think is going to happen is that there's a ton more exculpatory information that is set to come out in this case. I'm telling you right now, I can almost guarantee it. So I think Jensen will keep dropping exculpatory information that impugns the character of everybody in the Obama administration beyond all recognition. I mean, they already have them literally writing in their own handwriting that they're trying to entrap the guy. They have the transcripts. They have Sally Yates. And this is why when we went over the testimony in the hearing about Sally Yates, we went over how Sally Yates kept on talking about these sanctions, and none of the spineless Republicans countered her on it. Why that stuff, when there's an ongoing case in the court of public opinion, makes such a big difference. If half of these guys could tell their behind from their elbow, they would know this case inside and out like the rest of us do. Why is it that Republican senators don't understand this case the way everyday Americans who care about the country do? Can somebody answer that question for me? It's really, really concerning when you have a former high-level Justice Department official blatantly lying after transcripts of these calls had been released publicly. After transcripts had been released publicly that we can read with our own two eyes, and you don't push back, there's something horribly wrong. Either you're comped or you're stupid. I'm sorry. Which one is it? Because she did it. We went over 16 or 18 times that she lied about these sanctions, hammering down the whole General Flynn narrative. This case is disgusting. It's really, really gross. And it's going to continue now when you have the government and the prosecution and the defense in agreement that they should not move forward. And the judge is deciding that he's going to let the general public come and start to share their opinion on what the hell is going on in the case. MikeFlynnDefenseFund.org. We see these Antifa traitors millions and millions of dollars raised for these Antifa traitors. We see millions of dollars being raised for these people to get bailed out of jail after committing all kinds of atrocity. Defense funds for people who were, in altercations with police that are convicted felons with active warrants. MikeFlynnDefenseFund.org. This is, they want nothing more than for President Trump to step in and issue a pardon. They want nothing more. But understand that waiting till the last minute on that is the best course of action for everybody involved, including General Flynn, in my humble opinion. There is no need to, let's wait. Let's see how deep of a hole this man will dig himself into. They're just going to have to go through the motions on this. And one of the arguments in the initial brief, or in the initial arguments, was that the government can just refuse to answer any questions that are asked of them by this impartial friend of the court who wrote an op-ed excoriating somebody for crimes they didn't commit. God, if this can happen to somebody like this, holy moly. So if you're gonna find some folks who don't understand the case that are not adversarial, just share this link with them for the show so that they understand the background and why a pardon right now is just not a good idea, in my opinion. It's just not. And we still have the Durham investigation ongoing. There's a bunch of stuff that's gone up on UncoverDC.com about that in the past few days, actually. Today I posted an article by Shipwrecked Crew, U.S. Attorney, 22 years, experienced in the DOJ, about Klein, Smith, and Weissman. And it's a really great piece that you guys should read about why it is that Weissman wants Klein Smith to be quiet. Really good piece. Again, that's MikeFlynnDefenseFund.org. Support his defense, because I'm so sick of this, and everybody's sick of it. And we're going to talk in the second half of the show about some of the rioting and craziness that's going on. We're going to play some clips from the president's interview with Laura Ingraham last night. And we're going to talk about how they're trying to spin this, and what their tack is to try and change the narrative before the election. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. So, again, if you want to listen to the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m., we're on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM. We are also live on Periscope, YouTube, RightAmericaMedia.com, CloudHub, DLive, Facebook. You can go to UncoverDC.com to support our amazing journalists at UncoverDC. Contrary to popular belief, everything is not free. So we are running an operation that requires funds. So everything that you guys give us is very much appreciated to help us with that. I'm just so disgusted by this Flynn case. I really, really, really am. It's just infuriating. Infuriating. Ugh. Goodness. Maybe at the end of the show we'll take some calls. What do you say, Juan?
Whatever you would like to do.
We're almost at the break, right?
Actually, the break is not programmed, so we could probably take a call now so we can make it a break. And
sure.
Then, so if anybody wants to call, they can call 603-816-1590. And we'll put them right through.
Yeah, that'd be fun, just for a little breath of fresh air. 603-816-1590. Give us a call. Share your thoughts. Ask a question. Whatever it is that's on your mind. And then we'll get into the second half of the show. We'll play some clips and listen to some of what President Trump said last night. Was that a good synopsis, do you think, Juan? You think people would benefit from that, or was it not enough?
No, that was perfect. I just can't believe what's happening in this case. I mean, it's obviously the justice system has been infiltrated by leftists if I could say that in your show.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the truth.
Yeah. So it is unbelievable. I mean, we're kind of, well, thank God that he put Trump on as president in 2016, and he's able to put some true judges out there that follow the law and not their feelings. Oh, look at that.
Well,
We'll make it work.
Frank. There it is. We'll talk to you on the flip side.
This is Uncover DC with Tracy Beanz on WSMN, AM 1590 and FM 95.3.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean. And there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
You're listening to Uncover DC with Tracy Beanz.
So much going on. So much going on. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. I'll give out the number depending on how this goes in the second half. Someone in the comments on YouTube that I'm just glancing at, Red Wave in the comments on YouTube is looking for the number. We'll give it out again in a little bit. But let's shift gears a little bit. First, we've got this crazy violence going on all across the country, and it is a destabilization campaign. It is very much funded. It is very much organized. It is not some random, little acts of violence popping up in cities across the country. This is an insurgency, for lack of a better word. And, the convention last week was very effective at explaining this to people and showing them, what this all means and explaining that the Democrats are obviously not for law and order. They have been condoning this. They have been fanning the flames. They have been, completely accepting and encouraging of this violence that has been going on for several months now. That started with the death of George Floyd, who now we have the autopsy report months later that says that he died of an overdose, basically. So there's that. I wonder who's going to put those cities back together. They just needed the trigger. They just needed the excuse. They hopped on board that, and off we went to the races. So as they're polling, the internal polling's coming out and showing that the 90% of America is not on board with this violence. They're not on board with the destabilization. Every little event that's gone on over the past several months has been a trigger for one person or another, whether it was the COVID lockdowns and their continued lockdowns, the mask mandates, arresting people at the playground trying to play with their kids while cities burn down around them and those people get let out, the tearing down of statues and monuments, people getting killed and murdered, Chaz and Chop, which feels like decades ago but was just a few months ago. All of this stuff. Every one of these events has woken up more people and more people and more people. And the left as a whole, it seems, have really just thought that Twitter is the real world. And they really do a lot of their messaging on Twitter. And they think that Twitter is an example is an example of what the actual world out there is like. And the fact remains that it is not an example of what the actual world out there is like. As a matter of fact, during the Republican National Convention, C-SPAN had to change its chyron to read support Trump, support Biden, support independent, because the Democrat-Republican lines, so many Democrats were calling in saying they supported Trump that they changed it to be a support Trump line instead. Just think about that. It's a problem for these people. And they're getting the polling, and they realize that it's a problem. So now they're in narrative spin. For months they told us the riots didn't exist, Antifa was just a myth, all of that stuff. None of it existed. We were all crazy. They would stand in front of fiery, burnt buildings and talk about how everything was mostly peaceful. It was the summer of love. Everyone was getting along, and everything was just fine. Well, now all of a sudden, the riots are Trump's fault. Everything is Trump supporters' fault. It's the evil right-wing militia's fault. And the riots that they tried to gaslight us into thinking didn't exist for months are very clearly taking a front and center position on the left. They can't run from them anymore. And the messaging has been successful because it's true. When you're trying to lie to people, it doesn't work so well. When you're just telling them the truth, it works real well. So let's listen, clip one, Juan, real quick. Let's listen to how Adam Schiff is coming out now. And he's not just spinning the violence, but he's also bringing in some cover for himself on some Spygate stuff that's about to drop. Clip one.
Once again, you're going to make me throw up in my mouth by listening to Adam Schiff.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. It's got to be done.
In terms of what we can expect from the Russians or what the Russians are doing, the Russians 4 years ago, Dana, exploited Black Lives Matter. They set up their own false flags online to try to divide people along racial lines.
Are they doing it now?
And we have to, they are, once again, doing their best in social media, in their overt media, and other means to grow these divisions again. And I think that most pernicious, we have to worry about they're aggravating these tensions in our cities.
He's blaming the Russians for Black Lives Matter and Antifa. He's blaming the Russians. This man is insane. And he knows it's not true. He's just disgusting. This is the type of ridiculousness that's in Congress in our country. Somebody pulled the lever to have that man represent them. So now, let's talk about some things. They're obviously trying to shift this around now, and tons of narratives are floating around out there everywhere, right? So I've been getting messages from folks with DMs that they've been put into, and random people contacting them on Twitter, and it's very important that we talk through this real quick. There are social media influence campaigns going on all the time because they need to change the way this is going. So they are getting very crafty. There are accounts popping up 3-4 months old. And I understand that not everybody's on Twitter, but this is where they do it all. This is where they do it all. So they create these accounts. Real people might be running them. Real people might be running them acting as though they are one thing and not another. Or they may be bots. And there's no good way to tell sometimes. So they're brand new accounts. They have I hate the Democrats in their bio, or they have pro-Trump 2020, Christian conservative. They make it look as though it's a real account. And then all they talk about is uprising. They talk about violence, they talk about the riots, and nothing else. And here's what I think may be happening here. Just my honest opinion. That's all. Take it or leave it. Number one, they're actual people who are just really angry and are trying to get some stuff going. Bad, in my opinion, very bad. Number two, they are actual people posing as Trump supporters that are going to go out and do something bad and thereby taint, first of all Trump supporters, because they'll find their Twitter account and there it is, pro-Trump. Oh, look at this, look at this. They're going to ensnare the people that they have talked to in this. And number three is they're just framing out this sort of psyop so they can use it in their reporting to show all of the accounts that are talking about negative things that are associated with President Trump. Just understand that these people are not real. There are probably tens of thousands of them, if not more, they are positioning them to look like real conservatives to either censor all conservatives or change the storyline to make it as though conservatives are violent. It's going on literally as we speak right now. I'm just letting you know. I have the pleasure of a megaphone. I'm screaming into it. Be very careful and aware about this, because when you're aware about it, you can stop it. When you're aware about it, you can counter it. So I want to thank the folks that have sent me some of these messages. I'm not going to out the accounts because I have no way of knowing what they actually is. It could be some, random person that's an actual person. I'm not sending a mob to these people. But just be very vigilant about what you're doing. If there's a new account that was started in July and all they're doing is seemingly tweeting propaganda or, just insightful language or whatever, and they're just online for 3 months, could they be real? Absolutely. There are a lot of people that just hopped on board socials just recently, but there's also a good chance that they're not. And this stuff is going on all over social media. So just understand that that's happening. Now, the media tries to blame the Trump supporter for being in Portland as though they own the streets. They can protest, but we're going to do 2, Juan, and then we're going to do 4, just to let you know. So there was a murder in Portland. Somebody just shot someone in the chest in cold blood because they were a Patriot Prayer member. A murder. And the media is talking to Kayleigh McEnany, trying to blame President Trump for those people being attacked, and trying to blame President Trump for the 17-year-old who defended himself in Kenosha. Let's play clip 2.
I don't think the president's seen that video, nor have I, but if you're going to ask about paintballs, it's incredible that for 90 days I've stood at this podium talking about officers who have been lasers flashed in their eyes in an attempt to blind them, commercial-grade fireworks being thrown at them, a church right out here burning down, the people that were harassed and yelled at, Senator Rand Paul, Dan Bongino, right out here, and you're going to ask me about a paintball video when, in fact, for 90 days we've seen horrific violence by Antifa, a radical anarchist organization. You're going to ask me about a paintball video I've yet to see, and neither is the president. Francesca.
I'm going to ask you about it, but you maintain that the people who went into the city to conduct that activity, they are
the president's never seen that video. I don't even know if the people that you're referring to were a part of the paintball activity. But look, there's been 90 days of violence from left-wing anarchists. It's incredible that today is the one time you're interested in a violence when it's paintballs, and we don't even know who set off these paintballs, but you fail to ask for 90 days about violence from an anarchist organization because it happens to be on the left. Francesca.
It's so true. It's so true. And you know what? The only people that I can count on to say things like that are people directly connected to President Trump, because everyone else sort of pussyfoots around it, won't say it out loud. Why abhor violence of all kinds, and you get grow a pair. Am I allowed to say that? I hope so. I got to be careful. Grow one, because it's big. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. We need people with some guts. Let's listen to Laura Ingraham. I'm on 50-50 on this interview from her yesterday. It was pretty good, but there were a lot of things that made me a little angry. Let's play clip 4.
Ultimately put in more. We had 1,000 people, and we put it out quickly. You wouldn't have Kenosha right now.
In Pittsburgh today, Joe Biden gave a speech, and he spoke directly about this violence.
He may believe mouthing the words law and order makes him strong, but his failure to call on his own supporters to stop acting as an armed militia in this country shows how weak he is.
Your response to the vice president, sir?
Look, he's a weak person. He's been weak all his life, but now he's really weak. He shouldn't be running for president. He should not be there.
But do you want your supporters to confront the left-wing protesters, or do you want to leave it to law enforcement?
No, I don't want them. I want to leave it to law enforcement. But my supporters are wonderful, hardworking, tremendous people, and they turn on their television set and they look at a Portland or they look at a Kenosha before I got involved and stopped it. Or they look at Chicago, where 78 people were shot last weekend and numerous people died. Or they look at New York, where violence is up by 150%. It's up by a number that nobody, and people are leaving. They're looking at all of this, and they can't believe it. They can't believe it, whether it's my supporter or not.
But you don't want them showing up.
No, I don't. Well, it's a peaceful protest. I mean, they were protesting. They weren't. You know, it's amazing. They want to protest, and they get criticized. The other people run through the streets, burn down storefronts, hurt people, beat people, and kill people, kick people in the face. That would have happened to Rand Paul, by the way, and his wife, except that you had 2 and then ultimately 4 very good policemen who took a big beating. They took a big beating. And they really saved Rand Paul. In fact, we're going to bring him into the White House and give him some kind of an accommodation, because they really, what they did was very brave, actually. I mean, can you imagine? I'm saying policemen were brave because they're escorting, but they're escorting a U.S. senator and his wife. And as Rand said, he would have been killed if they weren't there.
What President Trump was going to finish saying, which I love him for, God bless the man. How supported did you feel just then as a person, as an activist, as a human being, when your president said, you know what, this is nonsense because Laura Ingraham is trying to push this thing that, we don't have the right to go out and protest or to peacefully assemble? What is that noise? That's complete nonsense. You don't want your supporters out there, though, right? I mean, you don't want them out there. Give me a break. So what? He said we get criticized when we go out and do peaceful demonstration, which we always do. But these people can destroy American cities' livelihoods and kill people, and nobody says a word. We're going to do 3 in a second. We're going to talk right now about the gentleman who was murdered in cold blood. The person who was standing with him, and I don't have the names written down because I'm stupid. I should know his name. It should be in my brain, engraved in there. But let's listen to the interview with this gentleman after that murder on clip number 3.
Okay, I believe the name is Jay Bishop.
Yes, Jay Bishop. Thank you.
It escalated to the point that they executed my partner. They hunted him down. They hunted us down. They recognized our Patriot Prayer hats. For anybody who doesn't know Patriot Prayer, Joey Gibson, the Citizens Advocate, is a good man. We support him, Christian and conservative. So they identified our hats. We've got a couple of them right here. We've got a couple of them right here. Pull it out. Pull it out. And that's what they said. We turned around. It didn't even register that somebody was pointing a gun at us until the shots went off and took off running. The shooter took off running. And it takes a second for you to process everything that happened. Did he just shoot at me? Okay, I'm okay. Turn over, and Jay's dead. Because he believes something different. Jay's not a racist. He's not a xenophobe or whatever label. He's not an ist or an ism. He's an independent man. He's a good man. And he didn't do anything to earn a bullet in the chest.
If you could ask anything right now, Donald Trump, what would it be?
Send troops. Send troops.
Send troops.
Arrest these. Portland is as corrupt as any place you've ever seen, any place you've ever heard about in the movies. I have a friend sitting right behind me here who's being charged currently with a felony riot while the DA is letting all these actual rioters out on the street. He was just out there waving an American flag. It's been charges pending for 2 years? But somebody who's throwing explosive devices at the police, somebody, when I went to the hospital and I met a Homeland Security officer who was there because his buddy had caught a mortar round in the chest and burned right through his uniform. He got third-degree burns all over his torso. Those people are being let go, while Christians and conservatives and anybody who is...
Yep. Bad news. Bad news. So, you know what I'm going to do? I have a couple more clips to listen to, obviously, but we're at 1:49. Let's take a caller to 603-816-1590. 603-816-1590. Call in. Let's talk about something. Remember, you're on radio, everyone, so mind your language. Be kind. And let's see what we can get here out of the next 10 minutes in terms of that. But what I loved is how President Trump stood up and defended us. You know, we've got a march coming up, guys, in October 2nd through the 4th, Washington, D.C. Go to Walkaway, and you'll see it. And it's going to be a big event, and we're super excited about it. And I hope that a lot of people come down to attend it. Yeah, we've got security. We do. But it's important that everyone's voice be heard, not just one side, because everyone's afraid. And it's a shame that we are going through this right now. But it is definitely very much organized, very well funded, and they're starting to look into it now. It's funny because I'm starting to see like some Republican senators say, we need to find out who's funding this. Oh, you think? Why weren't you saying this 5 months ago when you were watching cities being destroyed by out-of-towners that were flown in from goodness knows where? It's crazy what we're seeing go on right now. It's almost like I don't even know what to say anymore about this. It's really depressing. I mean, you know, I would give anything to go back to when it was just Maxine Waters telling people to confront people at restaurants and us gasping about it. Now I'm watching stories of people's car dealerships destroyed and all kinds of craziness going on. It's something else. Between COVID and this, there's obviously something big going on here. COVID, speaking of, 6% of the people that died only with COVID. The other 94% had 2.6 comorbidities, meaning diabetes and obesity, or heart disease and obesity, or heart disease and diabetes, or whatever. I think it worked out to something like, oh gosh, I'm going to be wrong, like 7,000 deaths or 6,000 deaths or something. I don't even know. Which is a lot of Americans have comorbidities in this country. So it's not like that's a good thing, but it's a lot different than what they told us. Not only that, the percentages of them that were sadly in long-term care facilities or nursing homes, our elderly were left behind in this pandemic, and they still are being left behind. Like, people can't even go see their loved ones in the nursing homes that they're in. They're like standing with the pane of glass between them, banging on the glass, like, what is happening? The good thing is, people get this and are opening their eyes, and President Trump has something like 30% black approval right now. Holy moly. So now they're starting to say, like today they just tweeted out, it's going to appear, it was Axios that said, it's going to appear as though President Trump is winning in the beginning. But don't worry. It's this. New, a top Democrat data firm, Hawkfish, warns that it's highly likely that Trump will appear to be way ahead on election night, but could ultimately lose when all the votes are counted in the ensuing days and weeks. Seriously. Why this matters. Way more Democrats will vote by mail than Republicans due to fears of the coronavirus, and will take days, if not weeks, to tally these. AKA, it will take days, if not weeks, to figure out how many ballots we need to fabricate to make up the difference between what happens on Election Day. This means Trump, thanks to Republicans doing almost all of their voting in person, could hold big electoral college and popular vote leads on an election night. Imagine America with its polarization and misinformation if the vote tally swings wildly towards Joe Biden and Trump loses days later as the mail ballots are counted. This is what this group, Hawkfish, which is funded by Bloomberg and also does work for the DNC and pro-Biden super PACs, is warning, is a very real, if not foreordained, outcome. What they're saying? This is called a red mirage, as per this group. We're sounding an alarm and saying this is a very real possibility that the data is going to show on election night an incredible victory for Donald Trump. When every legitimate vote is tallied and we get to that final day, which will be some day after Election Day, It will in fact show that what happened on election night was exactly that, a mirage. It looked like Donald Trump was in the lead, and he fundamentally was not when every ballot got counted. And they have a little like interactive map that's showing the states being taken away, like Florida's going blue, Nevada's going blue. By the numbers, one of the groups, under one of the group's scenarios, Trump could hold a projected lead of 408 to 130 electoral votes on election night if only 15 of the vote-by-mail ballots had been counted. Once 75% of mail-in votes were counted, perhaps 4 days later, the lead could flip to Biden's favor. This particular modeling scenario portrays Biden as ultimately winning a massive victory, 334 to 204. Give me a break. There's going to be a problem this season because, let me tell you something, nobody is going to accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins or loses. If the Democrats lose, if the Democrats lose, the Democrats won't accept it. If the Republicans lose, they're going to call shenanigans. This is going to be one of the most hotly contested elections in our nation's history. Hands down. Can you believe this, Juan, what they're doing here?
They're just hedging their bets. They're trying to get different avenues to be able to steal the election. That's all they're doing. And they're just setting up what I call set up the battlefield. Setting it up so they can, oh, I told you so. You see, 2 months ago we told you this was going to happen. So they're just hedging the bets. And I also wanted to say something, if you don't mind. Go ahead. Yeah, and in reference to something you had a clip on Laura there. I as a patriot do not need need permission from my president to be able to defend my town, to be able to have my my local police back. Here in New Hampshire, where it's constitutional carry, we patriots multiple times when there's been protests, we have gone out to defend and support our local police departments and our local businesses, because without those small businesses, the economy goes down. So I don't know if Laura understands that we don't need our president to say, oh, go do this.
Yep.
We can do it. We have a mind, and we know what our rights are, and we know what our Constitution says, and we have the right, a regulated militia, to go out there and help out the businesses and the police officers.
I think that there's a lot of people out there, especially in that class of people, that thinks that President Trump supporters are just mindless drones sitting there and waiting for battle cry and battle orders. Like, we don't have thinking brains of our own and we can't make our own decisions and we don't love the country or something. We're just like sycophants for President Trump. That's really not the case. And it is insulting, and you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about saying that because I was just pointing out that she's trying to, like, I don't know what she was trying to do there. Like, what tack were you trying to take? Anyway, we're about to wrap, right? So I will let everybody know that you can hear us every Tuesday and Thursday here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, or on Clout Hub, on YouTube, on Periscope, on Facebook, on rightamericamedia.com, what else? I'm missing one. There's one platform I'm missing. Oh, D-Live. And please go to uncoverdc.com to support our journalism and what we're doing there. We're also probably going to start adding some more podcasts to our podcast lineup, which is super exciting, and I can't wait to start doing that. We have a couple of new writers, and we're doing a 3 times a week series with Larry Schweikert about the election. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays every week up until the election, we'll have a new analysis of what's going on and what polls are looking like and all kinds of awesome stuff called Eye on Politics. That started this week, so yesterday was the first one. And there's another couple of big surprises incoming as well. But I can't do it without all of you guys to support me and us. Try to take this media thing and change it around. Have a great day, guys, and we will talk to you on Thursday.